time for episode 277 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by the Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center. Check out memorialhealthcare.org for everything offered. Our local partners include AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Well, we're a week away, guys, from the prep spotlight. We'll talk more about that, but like we always like to do, we catch up. And let me start this part out. I mentioned it last week that it was Fair Week, Shiawassee County Fair Week. That meant football starts, football practices. But I actually went to the fair, the Shiawassee County Fair, for the first time, really, since my daughter was a 4-H exhibitor. It's probably been 20, 25 years. I got to tell you. Man, it's improved a lot. Concrete walkways for the midway and food truck row. It was gravel the last time I went. And I got to say, man, that's probably one of the best county fairs, I think, in the state, and maybe even bigger than that, maybe in the entire Midwest. They really have done a nice job since years ago. They moved out to Hibbard Road there and expanded. It's awesome.
I mean, that's all that. So obviously, Jared, too, that's the only place that I know it. Because it used to be in McCurdy Park, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, that's all I know it is on Hibbard Road. So, obviously, Jared, too. The McCurdy Park thing, that would have been interesting. I know that cool grandstand they had there and all that stuff on the river. That would have been a cool setting, too. But, no, it really is. I think, and I don't think it's just our bias. I think it probably is. It's at least top 3 fairs in Michigan. And yeah, like you said, maybe Midwest, because I have some friends who have moved around the state and they were involved in the fair, growing up, like you were talking about your daughter. Mm-hmm. So they've gone to other fairs. I've gone to a couple other fairs, like up north over around the Oscoda area and over on the west side. And honestly, they don't stack up. Either they're just not as like big, or the displays or the rides aren't as good. The food, there's always like something that's like, Shiawassee County's better here. Or, Shiawassee County has all the shows. Like, we used to always go to the Demolition Derby, or they used to always have the figure 8 cars. They'd be smashing. They had like demolition combine things. Awesome. I don't know if they still do that. So like they have all those kind of events and stuff too. It's top notch. And like you said, they've improved the actual venue. With the concrete walkways and, all that kind of stuff. And that the animal shows and everything are always going to be great in Shiawassee County. That's going to always be top notch. So honestly, yeah, like I was telling my family was sharing, I know you saw my sister's family up there when you went. They were sharing pictures of going to the fair and doing all that stuff. It makes me like nostalgic, and it makes me miss going, because it is it's a really cool thing to do, especially when you got some kids, to enjoy it too. So yeah, can't beat the Shiawassee County Fair. That's for sure.
I actually
I'm pretty sure, Jared, didn't you say you're out on fairs? Didn't you say that or no?
I mean, I loved going to the fair when I was a kid because my buddies were there, and it's kind of like you're basically like on vacation for a week. Now that I don't really have any connections to the fair, I'm not a big fair guy, but I did actually make the trek there for some food on Saturday night. I got a pretzel, which was very good. I'll be honest. But it's funny walking those fairgrounds. It's the first time I've been there since I was probably, 12 years old. And it's funny walking them and like just the memories that I have as I'm like walking through it. So I see the like little playscape that they have there. And it brought me back to when I was probably like 10 or 11 years old. Me and my buddy went there for like a bonfire one of the fair nights. And we were just kind of messing around, playing on that thing or whatever. And this like snot-nosed brat kid came over and started like kind of messing with us with this other like girl that was with him or whatever. And so we were finally like getting pushed to our brink. And my buddy, who never is like the nicest guy in the world, I've never seen him do anything like this since or before that. The kid like gets up on the slide, slides down it. He's sitting there like hiding at the end of the slide. My buddy undoes his like Coca-Cola bottle. As soon as the kid slides down, just unloads it on his head. So it's just funny. That's the type of stuff that goes down at these places, man. And the thing that I remember most about that story is the look of just like pure like shock on this kid's face. You never will forget it. When I'm 80 years old, I'll never forget that kid's face. It was just an all-time memory. But no, I like the fair. I like being back there. It's just the rides, man. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it when I was 10. It would make me puke. I can't do it. So the fact that the rides were never that for me, it's hard for me to be like, man, this place is awesome. But I see a lot of other kids, and when I was there, a lot of people are laughing, smiling, running around, and they love it. But I just couldn't get around the rides, man.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if that's fair, if you can't do the rides, that would change the experience. Even the food. I mean, while the food is, it's great, you love it. If you can't handle the fried food and that kind of stuff, then again, that would change the whole experience for you. But you go get a hot dog, you go get a corn dog, a pretzel, like you said, the shaved ice and all that, and it just makes for a fun summer night. I think it's that thing too. It's a fun summer night, especially when the weather is good. You can walk around, like you said, people are laughing, having a good time. Like one of my nephews and his cousin, my sister sent a picture, and they were all like face painted all up. They had like their arms all painted crazy, and they were riding every ride. Like you said, you didn't like them. My sister said like she had to basically like peel them away from the rides. They just wanted every ride constantly. So if it's like that for you, then yeah, the fair it's a blast.
Yeah, I've evolved into obviously a different generation other than when I was growing up. The fair was the biggest event of the summer, like you said, back at McCurdy Park, and Jared, you talked about nostalgia. I remember when I was a little kid and we used to hang out there, but then, when we got to be, 8th grade, 9th grade, you could see it coming back when I was walking the fairgrounds and seeing the young kids in that age group, and your hormones are going crazy, but it's all about, the males and the females, trying to get with each other, that type of thing, and walk the fairgrounds, holding on to hands. That was kind of cool to see that.
Oh, it is definitely a hangout too. Yeah, I remember that. You would go. It's same with Kerwood. Kerwood was like that to an extent, but the fair, I don't know if I want to say it's cooler. It's a little better setup than Kerwood.
It's a little bit more like a Wild Wild West. I mean, there's a lot of ground, man. You can get lost.
You can, and you end up someone's going to show their pig, so you go watch people show their pig, and then someone wants to go ride the Ferris wheel or something, so you go ride the Ferris wheel, and there's a lot to do, that's for sure.
Oh yeah,
you guys never had any problems with the rides though? I mean, they just all go in a circle, man. I remember the zipper. Did me in. That's what did me in. Literally jumped on it, terrified the whole time I'm on it, creaking. Can't be safe. Those rides aren't that safe. Right. Get off it, run right to a trash bin, puke. Had to go to like basketball, like summer practice later that night. It was a hell day. I remember that clear as day.
That sounds
you guys could do it?
I'll say this. I know, Ted, you're jumping in. I used to be the same thing like I described my nephew, constant. Give me all the rides over. I want to never get off these rides. It's funny. My wife and I were kind of like, man, we must be getting old, because when we go to the amusement parks now, some of these rides do start to kind of turn my stomach a little bit. And I'm like, what is happening to me? I used to be able to do this no sweat, but yeah, I loved them.
Yeah, I mean, the Shiawassee County Fair rides, I rode them when I was younger. Wasn't huge on them though. I mean, there was the one that you went on with a buddy or two, and you cranked it back and forth. It was like a big swing, and it went up over the top and then back down. I liked that one.
Yeah, that was the zipper.
Was that the zipper?
Yeah.
Then I liked the Scrambler was one of my go-tos back in the day, and also the Himalaya. Back then, they played, rock music. Now it's a whole different generation of music, but they still have the Himalaya where they go around and up.
Same exact rides. They have the same exact rides.
It is.
Which maybe that's a debate for another day. I mean, how is it not ever made any updates? It's the same exact restaurants. It's the same exact. That's maybe what was more deja vu and bringing back all these memories is these food stands, the rides, everything's in the exact same spot year after year. So it maybe make a few improvements, but hey, I'm not the audience it caters to. So
kind of a consistency is kind of a neat thing too. What you're getting when you get there. I was thinking also about the different people that you see. You see the farm boys in their shit kicker boots, out there, and the girls trying to impress the guys. But a couple of observations and question for you guys, maybe along the 3-point line way of looking at things. Talking about food, you talked about pretzels. Just right off the cuff, do you have like a top 3 foods? And I can start it because I got a thing of French fries, homemade French fries, a corn dog. I didn't get a fat ball, but that would be my third thing because when I was a little kid, that was right the very first food stand when you walked into McCurdy Park was a fat ball, and it's basically just a glob of fried donut with chocolate or strawberry filling in it, probably 1,000,000 calories, but used to love those things.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's probably pretty close to my top 3. Corn dog for sure. Especially if they have the like foot long, like 2 foot, it's like this long corn dog. Next, I love like a classic, just greasy piece of pizza. I would probably go find pizza, the pizza stand. I do like pretzel though, the soft pretzels. Jared talking about that. So those 2, and then you got to go dessert. I'm either going. They used to have. I'm not sure if they still do. They used to have a stand where you could buy a pint of ice cream,
right?
And it was like locally made or something like that. That was really good. Or I would definitely do the fried dough. I've never heard of the fat ball. I don't know about that, but I always remember they called them the elephant ears. You get the big old thing.
Still have those.
Yeah, this big. It was just covered in powdered sugar and just so that would be mine.
That's a good question. I think you guys are missing the big one. I mean, elephant ear. You can't go wrong with the elephant ear. Elephant ears are great. I got the pretzel. That was good. That's not in my top though. I'd go fries number 2, and then I remember third final story on Fair is one year when I was there for like 3 or 4 days with my buddies, like sometime in middle school, they have like these, like, it's like a barrel of pop, just a big old thing of pop. And you buy like a souvenir cup and you fill it up with ice and it comes out of this nozzle, like really warm. So like, if you don't have ice, basically you can't drink it. And I think for that whole week, I probably had 50 cans of pop, just filling that thing up nonstop. So I think pop. That's just pretty basic. But I mean, when you're at Fair, that's kind of where your parents give you $25. They have no idea what you're doing with it, and you end up spending it all on pop. So that's what I did.
I got to ask though, with the fries, the big question: do you douse them in vinegar?
Don't douse them, but I definitely sprinkle vinegar on top of it with some salt too, but this is the other thing. The cost of living has certainly obviously changed since I was a youngster in the 60s attending the fair. You could, back in those days, you played games, they were like 10 cents or a quarter. Now they kind of figured it out. People are taking their youngsters to the fair or their grandkids like we did, and it's $5, to play a game, but you come away with a stuffed animal. I mean, we took little Harper. I mean, she had like a boatload of prizes that she got, even though it was $5 a crack. And then the other thing is the cost of the food. They have a ton of the food trucks on Food Truck Lane there, but I got a large French fry, which wasn't that large. It was $9.
Yeah.
I mean, $9 for some potatoes.
Oh, you can spend some money because I mean, you pay for admission, usually it's per head that you pay to get in. So there's that. And then, right, if you're going to eat a full lunch or dinner and then play some games, if you're going to get the bracelet to ride the rides, you can spend a little bit of money. That's for sure.
Do you guys ever look at those carnies and think that's kind of an awesome way of life that they have? Like, you talk about freedom and the open road. I always think that whenever I'm there and I'm seeing them, wearing whatever Joe Dirt type gear when they're serving you your food. I've always thought that's something I would have, maybe for a summer, man, I could have done it. I don't know.
It could have been a fun summer job if you travel all over the state of Michigan, or I don't know, who knows, maybe you do the Midwest. You go down to Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, something like that, and you're just living at the fair all the time. I mean, it could be kind of cool.
Actually considered that, not traveling the country as a carny, but every time they would come into town, it would usually be on I don't remember, a Saturday or a Sunday to start setting up, and they had the trailer with the fair office. They would hire, local kids to do certain jobs there at the fair. And I thought a couple different times that might be a good way to make a few extra coins, to spend at the fair. But yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to ride the ride that Ted helped put together though.
Good point. Well, first of all, I would take too long engineering it, so they would fire me on the spot. Well, anyway, any other catch up, boys, before we move on to some sports?
Oh, not really. Spent the weekend at the lake up here. Yeah. I know I've told you guys about it before, but we still say up north. People down here, they don't get what we're saying when we're like, yeah, we're heading up north. They're like, what do you mean? Like all the way back up to Michigan or what? And we're like, oh, I don't know. They're just up to
Yeah.
Lake Norman. No, but yeah, Lake Norman's the lake north of Charlotte. And yeah, we found a really cool, like kind of Airbnb getaway place up there. So
That's awesome.
yeah, anytime we're up there, I mean, it just, Ted, you know it, living on the water. It's just something
yeah.
about waking up and just being able to have your cup of coffee, looking out over the water. People are already out kind of tooling around fishing and, you know, the sun coming up and all that kind of stuff. You really can't beat it. I think I'm destined to live on some sort of water, whether it's a man-made pond or an actual lake, something.
Like Manitou.
Yeah,
Yep.
come on out. There's a house for sale right across the street. Family
There you go.
house, you know, fixer upper. Get on
Fixer
out.
It's the
All
best
right,
way
boys.
to do it,
We'll
right?
absolutely. Let's get into some sports right after this. All right, guys. Quickly, I just want to jump into right out of the gate our prep spotlight presented by Jacobs Insurance Agency. We're going to have our 6th annual 3-point prep pigskin preview coming up on our next podcast. You know, really looking forward to it. We got right around a dozen different local media and whatnot lined up to give their viewpoints on the different areas of the state. We've got a representative, Jeff Kimmerly from the MHSAA. We've lined up the I don't know if anybody's heard from Jerome Murphy personally, other than reading his articles, but we've got the exclusive. Jerome Murphy from the Argus Press is going to come on, talk about his career, which is winding down, and also take a look at Shiawassee County. I tell you what, we get a lot of good support from our listeners when we put this out. It's a lot of fun for us, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, again, we say it all the time. It's such a cool spot for people who, I mean, you don't have to be like a junkie for high school football. If you just enjoy the sport, it's a good pop it on and you get a preview for the whole state of Michigan. Obviously, you'll hear if you live on the west side, if you live up in the UP, we have someone from up there. If you live over in the Thumb, we have someone from over there, Detroit, you know, Flint, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Get a little preview of your area and hear about some other areas of the state. It's really cool, and it's a great way. We always drop it usually like the week of the start of the games. It's a good way to kind of get you geared up for the season. So, yeah, we always appreciate all the people who help us out and, you know, give us their preview of their area, and we're pumped for it. It's fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've always said that, you know, it's of all the things we do in this pod, that's one of the things I'm, you know, proud of or most proud of is how we put that together. I mean, it's cool. It's obviously it's not, you know, for everybody, but we know how big high school football is in this state. And I think it's a really cool thing for a lot of those kids who maybe don't normally get to hear their name called, or maybe don't have no idea what's going on the west side of the state or in the UP or whatever. Everybody gets to kind of get away to, in an hour, you can kind of hear what's going on in the state. And I think that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, kudos to Matt, too, for putting it all together once we get all the interviews in. But it is a lot of fun. And I did have one story that kind of blew my mind this week in high school football. Heartland High School, okay, they've got an enrollment of almost 2,000 students. They're not going to have varsity football this year because lack of upperclassmen. I don't know if that is the state of high school football moving forward, but it boggled my mind when I saw a Division I school, not enough players to play on the team that are juniors and seniors. Just came out of nowhere, canceled the season.
That is crazy. I wonder if because like you said, it's a large school. It's not somewhere small, you know, that
right.
Maybe the enrollment's just down or something like that. But I wonder if it's just, are people more playing soccer? Are they playing other sports, golf or something?
Maybe they have lacrosse. I didn't dig deep into it.
Right.
You know, maybe they're spread too thin for fall sports, but it still was a shock.
I know they have lacrosse, but I mean, this makes no sense.
I know.
Yeah. All right. I even wonder, like, you know, so I saw the headline that we retweeted at 3 Point Pod if you want to see the story, but the lack of upperclassmen, like you said. So is it that small where they can't even pull up 10 sophomores or something to at least fill the roster? Like I didn't dig in deeper and, you know, read every word of the article either, but I'd be curious if there's a little more to it than just lack of upperclassmen, because it seems like you could fill the roster out with 8 to 10 sophomores or something if you had to, but unless there's just no upperclassmen.
And you would get it if this was a team, that was losing every damn game for the
Right.
last 5 years or something like that. Like, all right, like this is no fun for anybody. I mean, this team won 6 games last year.
Wow.
Lost to undefeated Brighton 9-7. I mean, this was a district championship regional qualifier like level team. To have that, and then just a year later we're done. I just it's kind of mind blowing, like you said, Ted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're-
so I mean, I wonder if I don't know who the coach is, and this is pure speculation.
I know
or
where you're
whatever,
going.
but I wonder if the players, if there was some disconnect there, maybe players didn't want to play or something for the coach, or if there was something like that going on, more than just lack of numbers.
Will there ever come a day where there is no football? If you guys had to, I know it would be a while from now, but do you think that day is coming?
It's funny you say that. Me and again, referencing the group text that with a bunch of my Corona buddies that I talk about a lot. We were talking about that actually like a week or two ago, kind of like the ebbs and flows of kind of football or the popularity, or maybe something like this, a school that's down right now and they're not able to have a team. It seems like it's on the uptick right now. It seems like there for a while, for sure, with the safety stuff, the CTE and everything like that. Maybe people were starting to back away from football a little bit. But now, I don't know what you guys think, but it seems like it's, I don't know what I want to say, like back to normal, but it seems like it's back up. A lot more kids playing. I think it's maybe spreading out, more kids playing soccer or even lacrosse or something like that. But to your question, will it ever be no football? No, I don't think that's ever going to be a thing. But
Not in my lifetime.
yeah,
Maybe yours, Jared.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised. I would think before there was ever no football, maybe they go full on flag football or something like that, but never no football.
Yeah.
I mean, but doesn't it just show you that it's like the Generation Z or whatever you want to call it is football is not, they do not care. I don't know. There are still kids that love it, obviously, but this is one of the biggest high schools in Michigan saying we're not going to have football this year. You don't really hear any outcry from it. It's just kind of, all right, well, there goes their season. I have one quick little, it's not even a story. It's a tweet I saw that I thought was pretty hilarious, and you had to appreciate it. Jason Hutton actually tweeted it out. Whitehall was supposed to be Division 5 this year, but they elected to play in Division 4. And I just saw the quarterback's post about it, or what he had to say. He basically said, yeah, we have unfinished business in Division 4. And I just thought that was hilarious. You never see that. Wow. So it's funny the duality of the sport. There's one school that can't even field a team, and there's other one that's like licking their chops. They could add an easier route and maybe competed against a Corona. Instead, they're like, no, we're sticking up here in Division 4. We're going to compete here. So I just thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. And that's actually, I don't know, it's kind of like badass to have that kind of mindset, to know like, no, we want to stay in Division 4. We want to try and win one here in Division 4. That is kind of funny because, yeah, like you said, you could have dropped down a division and probably made a little bit of a run, because I know Whitehall is a pretty strong program over there. So that is funny.
Yeah, QB Kyle Stratton said that. Yeah. So
wow. Love his confidence. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Before we move on to talk some college football, just a little promo. Z92.5, the Castle game of the week, the opener this season, Eaton Rapids at Owasso, historic Wilman Field. Looking forward to that. And we touched upon it a couple different times, guys, but I am looking to do maybe 6 or 7 Facebook Live Corona Cavalier games, depending on how I can put it together, but it's just going to be an extra feature. Everybody out there pays for the NFHS. You will have an opportunity to maybe see Corona for free on Facebook Live on our 3 Point Podcast site. So that's going to be down the road, and I'll probably I know I'm going to be sitting in on at least 3 Castle games of the week. Casey Smith going to take over the play-by-play primary duties. In fact, we'll get him on the podcast before he starts his debut, New Lothrop at Chesaning. But yeah, looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. It is funny, Jared. You mentioned it to me before. It is kind of a weird time for me to step away with our Corona Cavaliers looking pretty promising, but I'm glad I'm at least going to have a chance to still be involved in some way.
Well, yeah, we saw now friend of the podcast, Tyler, who runs the Twitter site, Michigan High School Football Frenzy. He's going to give us some content for the Prep Pigskin preview too. But he put out his rankings. I think he did top 10, maybe top 15 of every division, and he has Corona ranked number 5. in Division 5. So, yeah, Ted, not the season maybe to step away from.
Well, like I've told you before, though, I may have stepped away from primary play-by-play duties, but at least I'll be around and I'll be going to the game.
If I was on the outside looking in, or if this was like a national, brand or story, people like you're like kind of looming over this season. Whereas if I was like, Casey making his debut, it's like, man, I'm filling in for this guy who did it for 30 years, but yeah, he's still kind of looming over it. I don't know, man. That's just me on the outside looking in.
Hopefully he doesn't feel that pressure, because I won't put it on him for sure. Well, let's move it on over into college football. The big story, obviously. What in the hell is going on with this Jim Harbaugh story? I mean, it's bizarre.
It's bizarre. To me, it seems like who's going to be more stubborn is, I think, what it comes down to. So yeah, for anyone at this point, probably everyone at least knows the gist of what we're talking about. But anyone who doesn't, so Harbaugh is getting investigated. It's a lot of alleged stuff, because nothing is coming out being proven yet. Alleged stuff that happened during the COVID year. Recruiting infractions. They had contact with some recruits that they weren't supposed to during a dead period during that COVID season. And then allegedly, again, he bought some recruits who were on campus some burgers, some lunch or whatever. That's not necessarily what he is getting investigated for. I mean, they want to know what happened there or what he may get suspended for. What the big deal is the NCAA asked him about that. And Harbaugh basically said, whatever, man, worry about something else. Like, I don't remember, go deal with other stuff. Are you really going to ask me about these things that happened 3 years ago, buying them lunch, blah, blah. So the stuff that actually happened is pretty minor. But if he really was lying, or if he really was covering up, is what the NCAA is trying to say, that's kind of like a major infraction. So that's what I guess the big deal is. And the NCAA, they came to an informal agreement that what came out 3 weeks ago or whatever, 2-3 weeks ago, a 4-game suspension. That was going to be the agreement. Cool, done. 4 games. We're done.
Yeah, let's move on.
We're out. Move on. Well, some panel got together. They had to approve it with the NCAA, and they said, no, we want to dig into this more. And so now we're back to this thing is open, and Harbaugh's back to, unless the University of Michigan decides to suspend him, which, they're not going to, because they've got his back. Harbaugh's going to be coaching every game this season, like he probably should have been in the first place. And this NCAA investigation is just going to keep going, and we're not going to hear about it, or we're not going to hear the end of it, probably for who knows how long. I told you guys before we started recording, I think this is going to be the last straw for Harbaugh. He's been dancing around the NFL for basically ever since he came to Michigan, every offseason. Kind of like the John Beilein situation. Beilein wasn't liking the direction that college sports was going. So Beilein saw the opportunity to give his shot, at the NBA. Obviously, it didn't go very well, but he didn't like the direction of the NCAA. I feel like that might be happening with Harbaugh right here. This is his best chance with Michigan. The team that they have this year, they can make a legit run at a national title. And if this stupid investigation keeps going, I think this might be the time, this upcoming offseason, that he's like, whatever, I'm out. Whatever NFL team offers him a deal, I'm done with the NCAA. He's rebuilt Michigan. Michigan they're established. He can be proud of that. Go back to the NFL now. That I wouldn't be shocked at that.
Yeah, he could. I agree. I do think there is a world where he would leave. I mean, it's silly, but he has said that he wouldn't. But, I mean, we can't put anything past him. It wouldn't shock me tomorrow if he left. The NCAA, this says more about the NCAA to me. What is going on? Why has this been a 3-year ordeal? It's unbelievable sometimes when you look at how society functions. For God's sake, suspend them or don't. Why is there 5 different panels to go through? Why did this news drop 2 years ago? Then we forgot about it. And then it came back right before the season started. 4-game suspension. Oh, wait, he wasn't suspended. What is going on? The NCAA, Ted, this might be your new retirement job. Throw in an application, because for the love of God, they have no idea what they're doing. It's just annoying. I don't blame guys like Beilein or Jim Harbaugh a couple years ago saying, I'm out, dude.
Right.
What in God's green earth? Who cares about this stupid story? And I don't blame Jim Harbaugh for being this kind of stuck up type way when they come and ask him about it. It's so dumb. A cheeseburger, watching recruits via Zoom, bringing guys in during COVID for recruiting visits. How dumb. Yes, it's
Yeah.
against the rules.
You are
But
so
for the love of
right.
God, they are trying to make some example out of them, and it's just making themselves look like idiots.
It's ridiculous. And I think right now, if Harbaugh, if his heart is in Ann Arbor and he wants to stick around long term, right now is the time to strike. I mean, the NCAA, they're weakened, man. All these super conferences getting together. I think these athletic directors should have their own clandestine meeting, get together and say, F the NCAA. We're going to run this thing ourselves. I think Ward Manuel needs to back Harbaugh 100% and go to war and just take a stance right now. Don't, they're staying real silent and all this. Take a stance. I'm backing my man Harbaugh. He turned the program around. If he truly wants to stay as Michigan's head football coach for the next 10 years, man, all the power to you. But I wouldn't blame him to leave either. It's a bunch of crap, and the NCAA is a joke.
Yeah, no, you guys are spot on. And I think when we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and everyone else has too on Twitter, wherever else. Okay, if he's legitimately covering something up, okay, you shouldn't do that. But to Jared's point, what they're so hell-bent on investigating is so minor when you think about a lot of the other stuff that other schools have done when it comes to recruiting violations. And I mean, geez, we don't have to get into it, but, assault situations and, all this other stuff that the NCAA doesn't seem to really care as much about. But when it's Jim Harbaugh,
right,
for some reason, they just don't want to put this away. Like, yeah, they could have easily just been like, come on, man, what do we want to do? Suspension? Do we want 3 games, 4 games? Let's just get this over with. Call it good. And instead they're going to let it drag on. And like I said, I think it's more who's going to be stubborn. Like the NCAA doesn't want to back down to Harbaugh, and Harbaugh does not want to back down to the NCAA. And that's as dumb as it gets, because I'm with you, Ted. I'd be curious. Like, I mean, we could look it up, there's probably articles, or we could look something up, like what the school's like commitment to the NCAA is, like what it would take for the schools to just say, basically, no, we want out of the NCAA. Like, no, we don't. The Big Ten, I mean, obviously with all this conference realignment, the NCAA can't do anything about it. If the presidents and the athletic directors and everyone agree to USC, UCLA coming to the Big Ten, the NCAA can't say yes or no. So TV money, and if they can, kind of have their own like rule makers and, all the logistics and stuff like that, do they need the NCAA? I guess is what I'm saying. I really don't think so. I wonder if like March Madness, if that's like an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it is.
Stuff like that. You'd have to figure that kind of stuff out. But I don't know. Get someone like Mark Cuban behind it, and he can fund it all.
It's dumb. They don't know what they've never known what they are doing, man. I mean, you're watching this Johnny Manziel doc, and he was suspended for a half for everything that went down in between his freshman and sophomore year, suspended for a half. Harbaugh, I mean, look at NIL. There's no guide rails. There's no regulations. There's no rules. It's the wild, wild west. Yet they know that that's such a massive undertaking, and they get that under control, that they decide they're going to devote all this energy to Jim Harbaugh and trying to get him suspended for 4 games. Was Jim Harbaugh perfect? No. I mean, should he just suspend him for a game just to get it over with? Sure, I don't care. But 4 games, and the fact that it's becoming more of a distraction than anything, whereas if they just came in and did it, it would be over with. Now it's going to be looming over this whole year, looming over last year, or it won't. I mean, we kind of forgot about it the first time around. So it's just hilarious that the NCAA, the time they spend on this dumb thing, when there's such a massive problem that we all can see in NIL, in conference realignment, and they are helpless when it comes to that.
Yep. No leadership. It's just crazy. Somebody needs to step up. Hey, we talked about different people. I mean, put Jay Billis in charge of NCAA basketball, or whatever you want to call it, ESPN basketball. I don't care.
Right.
But let him run it, and let's get some people with some common sense that know what they're doing. I'd like to know how much money these high rollers in the NCAA are lining their pockets with too. What kind of salaries. We could spend time looking stuff up, but it just makes you wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, whether it's they probably get a cut of the TV money, they probably get a cut of whatever March Madness makes, the college football playoff, they get a cut of all that. And it's kind of like, you have to think some of the 8, whether it's athletic directors, presidents, whoever it is, they've got to sit back sometimes and be like, why do we need the NCAA? Like, I'd really be curious what like the reason is why they have to stay with the NCAA. Like, I don't know, are they under contract? Like there's TV contracts, or whatever. Like, I wonder if there's something like that, but maybe it's a funding thing. But when you see the money that these schools get for TV, I think they could easily step away and not be in the NCAA, but yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
It is. Well, college football right around the corner, and NFL right around the corner. Lions, man, there's a big buzz going on in training camp. They got the W over the Giants. My main concern right now is, man, don't play any of your star players in preseason. Just let them be healthy as they start out at Kansas City. But, there was definitely some bright spots in preseason game 1 against the Giants. And what stood out to me was the defense. These young guys look pretty good.
Yeah. Brian Branch came up and laid some wood on that one hit. The defense. What?
On Cole Beasley.
Yeah. I was trying to remember who he laid out. Yeah. Cole Beasley. The defense is a bright spot. And like, I'm with you. Preseason, yes, I think there's value to getting some live game snaps, some live game reps, especially, for someone like Jameson Williams. He needs to get out there and get some live game reps. Like, that's different. Some of the rookies, yes, go out there, see what the NFL speed is all about, for sure. Other players, Aiden Hutchinson, Jared Goff, Marvin Jones, some of the offensive linemen stuff. Nah, you guys are good. Stay healthy.
Amen.
Practice and everything, and just stay healthy, like you said, for Kansas City. I wanted to just say about the Jameson Williams thing. I don't know if what you guys think about it, but I almost feel like this kid is like getting set up to fail by fans and in the media, because he's had a little bit of a rough go of it at his start with the Lions. Obviously, coming off a major, I think some people forget about it. It wasn't just like he dinged his knee up that last season at Alabama. He tore his knee up. Like, it was a pretty gruesome injury, to the point that you could probably question the Lions taking him in the first round coming off of that injury. But, so he's coming off that injury, his whole rookie season, he's rusty, barely practiced. That rookie season's almost a wash for him. So then he comes into his first full training camp, and, there's some drama with the gambling stuff, and there's some drama that happened at practice and stuff and whatever. So people are already starting to write off, is he mature enough for the NFL? Does he work hard enough and all that kind of stuff? And then he comes in, he drops a couple passes, and, maybe it's not the best debut or whatever. It just seems like people almost want to label him a bust. They want to label him Charles Rogers, Mike Williams, some of these other receivers that the Lions drafted, where I'm just like, give this kid a full season of games at least. Like, let's see him first healthy. Is he finally 100%? Is that knee he's finally 100%? And then let's see him for a good 10, 11, 12 regular season games where he's out there with the starters. Like, let's see that. And before we start labeling him a bust, because then what does he do? He comes back with a pretty nice little one-handed catch for a touchdown. So that's my thing. I mean, fans are going to be fans, whatever. They're going to overreact over everything, but let's give this kid a full season before we start saying the next Charles Rogers or whatever. That's at least my opinion.
That's fair. It is too young or too early to really make an opinion on him. It just seems like there's a new story about him every day off the field. Obviously, it's basically stemming from the gambling thing, which is dumb. And I think we all agree the suspension is way too harsh, and it really didn't even do anything wrong, I would say. I mean, he placed a college bet while on a road trip with the team. I like Williams. You can't ignore some of these stories that are coming out of camp. I mean, catching the ball, believe it or not, it's a big part of being a wide receiver. He's struggling with drops. It's never good when you hear that, but I will say, I remember Jamar Chase, his first preseason in training camp, he was getting used to the new NFL balls without the stripes on him. He's like, I can't catch. I can't see him right now. And I remember seeing that story and being like, oh God, he might be a bust. Like, how are they going to go on without this guy who can't catch? And he figured it out. I worry about it. I really do. It's never good when the coaches are coming out and making comments like his catching mechanics are off. Right. I've never heard that before with a wide receiver. Yeah. And we saw that, on that Sudfeld perfectly placed ball that he dropped. I like Williams. I mean, we all remember how he burst onto the scene against the Vikings. First game back, TD, whatever it was, 50 plus yards. So I like him. He's exciting when he's out there. It's just I would have liked to have seen more in his first preseason game where he's playing every snap. I mean, he's a first rounder. He had 2 catches. And I understand it's different quarterbacks and the offense is always struggling preseason. But just would have liked to have seen him make more of an impact if we're going to really dive in and dissect this preseason game number 1. I would have liked to have seen more from him.
Yeah, I mean, he did have the one drop that was right on his hands. You got to make that catch. The high school receiver can make that catch, for God's sakes. But it is way too early. I think the guy has still a big upside. It's speed, baby. And that, he's going to improve on his catching, I think. It seems like the most recent stuff I've seen on social media coming from training camp, it seems like the players like him. Maybe Campbell sent him a message. It just depends if he takes it to heart. It's a professional career. He's going to make millions of dollars if he does what he needs to do. And it's right now what he does this season after he comes off the suspension. I agree. Let's play him all kinds of time in preseason games so he gets used to the speed. And I think he still has a good future with that team when he comes back. It's another weapon they have, and you can't beat speed in the NFL, man. Just can't beat it.
Especially if he's not going to be expected to be the number 1, the Calvin Johnson, the Randy Moss. If Amon-Ra St. Brown looks like he's the number 1 receiver, and even Marvin Jones coming back, a veteran receiver can be in that, one of the starters. If Jamison Williams is just kind of like the speed guy, just burn it downfield, and if you're open, Goff is going to bomb it out to you. I'm fine with that, but we'll see.
Yeah. I will say in a positive, I did see Jack Campbell, who I was maybe the most concerned with when we drafted him. Didn't understand it at the time. He seems to be just like a plug and play guy. I saw he rated the highest on Pro Football Focus of any rookie in preseason game number 1. He only had 2 tackles, but basically what I love Pro Football Focus and those ratings because they're watching every snap, they're watching every play, his responsibility. And that basically just shows that he was in the right place, the right time, every single snap. So I really like Jack Campbell. I think he's going to be kind of the unsung hero this year. You're never going to hear much about him. I don't think he's ever going to make those highlight plays, but he's just a guy that's reliable and he's always going to be in the right spot every single play. And he's just a good linebacker. So I like Jack Campbell.
Yeah, good call on that, man. The linebacker room looks like it's going to be pretty solid. So, our fingers are crossed. The Detroit Lions defense improves because it's been pretty bad the last couple of years, and it looks like they plugged some holes and they got a little confidence going. And go Lions, right? Hashtag since 57.
This is the year, right?
Amen.
This is the year.
Amen. Okay. Anything else in our potpourri before we move on to some entertainment?
Yeah, I have something, and it's a depressing story. So I remember where I was when I went and saw this movie for the first time, The Blind Side. Went with a group of buddies, loved it. Sat there eating the popcorn. SJ stole the show as a kid. Around the same age, he was hilarious. The movie was great. We all know Sandra Bullock's performance was awesome. Tim McGraw, great role as the dad. But basically what we've learned is this whole story was BS. So an article came out yesterday, in case you didn't see it, basically saying that Michael Oher, who is the star of that movie, basically they never even adopted him. They basically signed a Britney Spears-esque conservatorship over him, basically where they could make business deals on his behalf, but they didn't adopt him really at all. And they made this move, 3 months before he turned 18. So it didn't even really matter. And what the worst part about it is they tricked him. This is an 18-year-old kid, doesn't really know what the difference is. They explain, it's just basically a title. It's the same exact thing as getting adopted. No, it's not. And then you read more into the movie and how these royalties have been getting dished out. I mean, they're to the Sean and I don't remember the Tuohys, whatever the mom's name was, Leanne Tuohy. Their kids have been getting like $300,000 from that movie, and Michael Oher hasn't seen a single thing from it. I'm curious as to why this is just now coming out. This happened, 10, 12 years ago. Maybe Oher's kind of finally realizing how much he really got screwed in this whole deal. But it's just messed up, man. I mean, that was such a good movie, such a heartwarming story. I read the book by Michael Lewis. It was blindside everything for about a year there. And just what a sad and kind of nasty turn it's really taken.
Yeah, my only comment before you jump in, Matt, is first of all, the timing, like you said, why is it coming to light now? What kind of representation did he have? He was an NFL player, for God's sakes. He had a representative. How is this coming out now? There's something there doesn't quite smell right to me. Just me sitting here.
Yeah, like I think he's putting out a book, or like someone, maybe he didn't write it, but there's a book coming out on Michael Oher's behalf, I think, with his like story. So I've seen some people say like maybe this is like a PR type move for the book. I did see something that was interesting with all this too. I saw Barstool tweeted out that the real SJ, like the kid that is the SJ, did an interview with Barstool. And I saw some people questioning him doing that because this is about to be a pretty big like legal investigation and everything like that. So why is he going out and doing an interview with Barstool? But I saw one clip where he basically said, we knew this was coming. We knew this was coming. So that kind of made me lead on to like, does he know that they never adopted him, that this was kind of all a BS adoption type of thing? So is that why he's saying like, we knew this was coming? It's all very strange. And it is kind of sad because like you said, Jared, that movie was huge. It was a heartwarming story. It made you feel like there are good people out there in this world, take this kid in and give him an opportunity and all that kind of stuff. And then come to find out it's all probably BS, unless Michael Oher is the one lying, which I'd kind of be surprised if this is the route that he's going to go and lie about all this, It comes down to me, like it just doesn't surprise me. I think if it is true that these people did basically make him lie to him about adoption, make him sign the conservatorship so they could have control of his whole life, basically, it doesn't surprise me one bit. It's people that maybe saw a gold mine and they said, hey, like you said, Jared, this kid, coming from the background that he is, has no idea what he's about to sign. And we're about to make a shit ton of money off of him because he's probably going to go pro. And maybe they didn't know about the movie thing at the time, but they probably thought like this could turn into something big. Let's take control of this kid. And it's just, like you say it all the time, Ted, and a lot of people do. Greed is the root of all evil. And these people might have seen, like I said, a huge payday. And it's truly a shame. And I'm not surprised because of the greed thing. I think when it comes down to it, people are crappy, and if they see a payday, they're going to take it.
I'm sure something is spurned. I mean, what would irritate me if I'm Oher? I mean, thinking back to this movie, they made him look like a complete idiot in that movie. They really did. Like he didn't know the rules of football. Like basically was taught everything he learns from Sandra Bullock and all those things about defense or whatever the whole damn thing was about, how he would protect people or whatever. He's wearing like bumblebee clothing. I mean, they made him look like an idiot. Right. And then you come to find out he gets no money from this whole thing. It's just messed up. And I'm kind of reading the cliff notes of this SJ Tui interview with Barstool, and it's like he kept saying the word adopted when they didn't adopt him. Right. They flat out lied about that, and they said that in the movie that he was adopted. So it's just kind of clearly, if there was no difference, why did you make sure that there was this difference made? Still to this day, when we know it was conservatorship. And in the movie, there's no movie if that's what happens, because it's just that it's basically this kid's just getting shafted.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing. After I saw the movie about the Chippendales and that whole scandal, I'd like to look at what the paperwork said from the parents to Oher. If there's the word perpetuity in that contract at all, watch out, because that I'll never sign anything that has that word in it because it screws you over.
What is it?
It means forever they have rights to the money. So,
yeah. Well, I wonder if that. I mean, we'll find out. I wonder if that's going to be Oher's defense. Kind of play dumb. Like, I didn't know. I was trusting these people that were saying they were going to adopt me, and maybe kind of to Jared's point, they made the whole movie about adoption. So that might help his case. He might be able to be like, see, they were telling me the whole time they were adopting me. I'm coming from, I have no idea. He probably didn't have legal representation saying like, no, you need to read this document. You better make sure that word that you're saying, Ted. He was probably like, cool.
Perpetuity.
I'm.
Let me ask you this though. I started it he had an agent. He's an NFL player. He had an agent. Don't you think they would have been involved looking at his financial package somewhere along the line?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's where it seems like basically he found this out, potentially in 2020. It's
Right.
kind of what Tui's arguing is that, he didn't just find out about this now. He knew it in 2020. Even if that's the case, I mean, that's messed
Still a
up,
long
man.
time.
But still really messed up. Yeah, I
Right.
would agree. It is kind of surprising. I don't know how whoever his agent was. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's the Tui's agent, set him up with this agent or whatever.
Could be.
And that wouldn't surprise me. So it just sucks because it was such a, like you said, heartwarming story. And it just seems like the internet and real life kind of ruins everything nowadays. And that just sucks that the ending of that story, if you ever wanted to go back and rewatch it, it's like you almost can't now because it's all BS. It just sucks. That's the turn that this took. And surprising that it took this turn, 14 years after the movie was released.
Yeah, I'd be curious if Oher obviously made millions of dollars and probably has a legit legal representation now. If it took a while for them to build their case, if that's why it's taken until now, but if the family's defense is going to be like, he knew about this, like if they're really just brushing it off, that makes them look even worse. Like, you don't feel bad about what you did to this kid. You don't feel bad about lying to him about being adopted, about basically stealing all of his money about his story. You don't feel bad about this. Your defense is just, he knew about it. He signed the paper. That's pretty bad.
Sad story for sure.
Yeah,
well, talking about The Blind Side, typically that would be in Entertainment Tonight, but it kind of mixed into our potpourri. And let's take a short break and come back with Entertainment Tonight to wrap up this podcast. All right, Jared, you set it up first. I mean, you talked about Johnny Football and his slap on the wrist for half a game suspension. Watch the Untold on Netflix on Johnny Football. It's got a lot of mixed reviews, let's call it that.
Yeah.
But to me, and I know he was your guy, right in the sweet spot of you watching college football, it's funny how you forget certain things. When I watched the recap of everything that went on leading up to his college career and watching him play that freshman season, damn, he was electric, and he was definitely the Heisman winner, man. He had everything going his way, and it just collapsed.
He was the definition of Johnny Football, right?
Yeah.
A lot of guys have had that nickname, but Manziel was like the definition of that.
That season was, that was the Monte Teo year. That was maybe, in my opinion, and I was right in middle school, right in the sweet spot of loving sports and all that sort of thing. That was the best year of college football. It really was, in my opinion. If you put Michigan biases aside, where Michigan's had great years since then, that was Michigan football at its best. You still had the traditions of the rivalries. The Pac-12 still had teams that were competing out there that were good. But in terms of this actual doc, and maybe this is the right way to compare it. I didn't like it. But then again, I'm Johnny Manziel's, maybe number one fan. Not the more and more I've gotten to know his story, I've definitely lessened. But, back in the day and leading up the last, 5-6 years, go throughout his NFL career, I was the number one guy. I know everything about him. I know all these stories. Obviously, there's some new ones that broke, such as like he never came from oil money. There was some cool moments like that in the doc where you kind of shed some light on things that we still didn't really know a whole lot about. But I heard Jake Paul talking about his version of Untold that they did, and how basically what these are is they're kind of slapped together. It's almost like you're skipping a stone across a pond. It's just touching on a few different moments on their life, but not really giving you the full inside, in-depth look. I could have seen a 5-hour documentary on Johnny Football. There's so much to unpack in that story. And Untold, it's like, in terms of on the field, they talk about the Alabama game, and that's about it. They go Alabama, they show his debut, they do the Alabama game, and then it's basically, that's all his college career was. How can you encapsulate maybe the greatest season of college football ever, maybe the greatest 2-year run by a quarterback ever in college football, in one 5-minute highlight of one game? So I didn't like it. I just didn't think it was that good. I really didn't. But then again, I think it's good for people who maybe didn't follow the story as closely as I did, because you kind of get what you're saying. You forget about how awesome he was and all that sort of thing. But it wasn't for me. It wasn't for my audience. It was for more the casual viewer, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the people who, like you, Jared, like you're saying, big fans, I could see how it was a little bit of a turnoff, because it's almost like everyone knows the stories about how he, frankly, kind of threw his career away. And it was cool to see him maybe, coming to the realization of that and, opening up about certain things. But right, they didn't necessarily give him much credit at all for what he really did do. I thought I thought it was pretty good because it's nice to see some of the backstory and see maybe what really this kid was going through. Because you try and, at least the way I thought about it, you try and put yourself in that place and be like, if you're all of a sudden you just burst onto the scene and you're the biggest name in sports. I mean, when Johnny Football, when he was playing, he was as big as LeBron James. He was as big as anyone. Everyone knew who Johnny Manziel was. And, you're going to be a first-round draft pick, Heisman Trophy winner. You're beating Alabama. You're doing all this kind of stuff. Everyone loves you. You're going to Vegas for parties. You're partying with all the celebrities and all that kind of stuff. It's easy for us to sit back and be like, he threw his career away. What a waste. He just threw it all away and everything. But you have to try and think about like what it would be like to be in that position. Like it'd be hard not to be partying all the time and be throwing away money and, going on some extravagant spending sprees and stuff like that. So yes, there's a side, like I heard some people say they don't feel bad for him at all because he had every opportunity to at least have a decent NFL career, make a lot of money, set himself up, and he threw it away. Then maybe there's a side that you do kind of feel bad a little bit because you wonder like what kind of leadership he had behind him. Did he have people trying to get him out of that partying phase? Maybe, he has some health stuff going on. He's diagnosed as bipolar now and some other things. So maybe he should have had some people helping him out in that sense. So you can see both sides of that. I don't necessarily like feel super bad for him. I mean, he knew what he was doing, but also like, I don't think he's like a waste of life or whatever, like some people say. So,
well, yeah, you touched on exactly what I was going to say. And it's kind of, again, coming from the old guy of the podcast, some words of wisdom while I still have my mind. It's you really got to surround yourself with the right kind of people.
Right.
His best buddy there was an a-hole, man. He was on for the free stuff, didn't look out for him at all. And it's easy to do, obviously, at that age group, man. I mean, I've seen it
kind
happen.
of brilliant, though. I mean, he didn't get caught.
Yeah,
he got Johnny Manziel on private jets and got him some cash. Yeah, probably wasn't the best thing for his future, but there and now he had some wits about him.
Yeah,
you can't deny that. That's for sure.
Yeah, it kind of like it made me think like, so you're talking about Johnny Football, Jared, as your guy. I know LeBron James is also your guy. That's always one thing. I know this is a little bit of a side note from Tittertainment. It's always one thing I think about with LeBron James. When I see stories like Johnny Football, maybe not surrounding himself with the right people, it's one thing I think you can always give LeBron James credit for, is surrounding himself with the right people. And, his crew basically that he grew up with now is, business people and stuff like that. Because you hear so many sad stories about professional athletes all of a sudden becoming millionaires. Next thing you know, they're broke. So maybe not necessarily the Johnny Football story because he has family money, but, you kind of see both sides of it sometimes.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. It doesn't happen more, honestly, I don't know. I mean, you're Johnny Manziel. How in God's green earth do you decide I'm going to go buckle down and watch 10 hours of film right now? I don't know.
Zero.
It'd be hard, dude.
Right.
It's kind of like, I don't blame you for what happened. It was a whirlwind.
Yeah.
You just wish he had better people in place around him that maybe could have kept him on the straight and narrow. Like you wonder what would have happened. Let's say he's at Alabama. I just wonder what if under Nick Saban's kind of guidance, maybe eventually he still would go off the rails, but you got to think it maybe would have been at least delayed a little bit if Saban was his head coach.
And not just that, if he would have been Alabama and then maybe not drafted by the Browns,
right?
It's almost like he was set up both ways. Texas A&M was just a free for all, and then he got drafted by the Browns, maybe the worst franchise in the NFL. Like,
yeah. And then the doc didn't make Kingsbury look like he was looking out for him either. He kind of just was shoveling things under. Oh, you're hungover. That's okay. You better play good. That's some.
But I don't know. It's like there was no. It's like it's a hard thing. It's like I just don't know if there's a world where he doesn't go off the rails. Like you hear. It's like that was kind of what Kingsbury was basically saying by that. It's like he was going to do that. Like we couldn't really stop him. Yeah. I mean, you see that like he literally watched 0 hours of film in the NFL. That's like kind of crazy how much you like do not care to do that. I mean, if you're a freaking freshman quarterback, you watch at least some film every week.
Right.
Just crazy, man.
Well, his mental being and substance abuse definitely altered his thought process without a doubt.
Yep.
Next thing I wanted to throw up on the podcast here, Jared's going to want me kicked off of Tedtertainment tonight again because watching the Johnny Football doc Untold, I had never seen the Manti Te'o doc, and I watched that, the two-parter. Wow, 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 wow. A whole different viewpoint I have on him now. I can see why he got catfished. I can just see the whole thing. I give that a 3 out of 3, man. It blew my mind. And I know it's old news, but if you haven't seen it, I'd say check it out. What do you guys think about that one?
So I haven't watched that one. I've always wanted to go back because I've heard people say it is very good.
Oh,
More in the sense of like you get a little more because we all remember that story when it was like you said, Jared, during that season when it was all happening.
yeah.
Notre Dame won in the national title game, and all of a sudden it comes out that
It was wild.
This heartwarming story. Everyone thought he had this girlfriend and all this stuff, and there's this whole story. He's up for a linebacker, up for the Heisman Trophy, even, and all that kind of stuff. And then it comes out. It's fake.
Right.
There is no girlfriend. It's all fake. And then we didn't even really know what catfishing was then. That's
Exactly.
it was kind of a new thing. What is this catfishing? So because of all that, because I remember, that whole experience, I have wanted to go back and watch that documentary because I heard it's really good. But
Watch it, man. Watch it.
So you didn't get, because I've heard people say like, so what was your sense? I've heard people say it makes Manti Te'o almost look dumb in a sense. Like how did he fall for it? Is what
I didn't take it that way. I think it was a brilliant ruse. I mean,
I was gonna say anyone would have fallen for it. Literally, had the girl that was the girl in the pictures that was catfishing was basically working in cahoots with this guy, where they're getting pictures from her, doing basically Manti Te'o would say stuff like, "All right, send me a picture with holding a picture of today's date and holding up like a peace sign," and this guy would basically trick this girl to send that picture to this guy who then would send it to Manti Te'o. I mean, it would have fooled anybody.
Yeah.
And then it's like you hear him talking on the phone and he does this girl voice and it's convincing, man. And then they even had him do it in this interview. I mean, he was an evil person to do that to Manti Te'o, but no, you don't blame him. This guy was a brilliant ruse. As you said, he had a brilliant ruse going.
Yeah. And you to me, after watching it, it'll be interesting to see what Matt says. At the time, I didn't have a lot of strong feelings about him, but I kind of was along the lines that, how could you be so stupid? But now that I've watched it and saw the whole thing unfold in a two-parter, he was obviously fooled by a brilliant ruse, like I've said, and it really makes you feel sympathetic to him. I mean, to have to go through that, and especially, I won't ruin anything, but it all comes down to that national championship game and what was going on at that very point. You can understand it now, why they got killed and why his mind wasn't.
I mean, whether his mind was on straight or not, they still would have got.
They would have, but still.
Right.
But it sucks because that was a magical year. And it was a crazy story. I mean, his grandma and his girlfriend died on the same day.
Yeah.
And then he has this absolutely incredible season. I think he had almost 10 interceptions, or maybe he did have 10 as a linebacker on top of all the other plays he was making. It just a crazy year, man. And like I said, one of the wildest years in college football was that 2013 season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got one final thing to wrap this up with. It goes back to my morbid viewing pleasure, if you will. I was watching a News Nation, and I happened to watch it 10 o'clock at night. I'll tune in to like 15 minutes of this female broadcaster called Ashley Banfield, and it just caught my attention. She had the grandson of Charles Manson on for an interview. Okay, and we all know about Charles Manson. I mean, he's the devil reincarnated, obviously, but the grandson. There was a big battle for Charles Manson's remains when he died, and the grandson ended up with him. And he put together a documentary. It's been out a couple years now. I think it's on Reels, the network. It's called Charles Manson: The Funeral. And the thing that I took from this little interview, which just it blew my mind. I mean, it's hard to believe that there are these people out there, but they are. You got to be careful. At the funeral, they had an open casket, and then they cremated Charles Manson, And then they had a secondary ceremony. There was some of his followers back from the late 60s and 70s at this ceremony. And the grandson, in some weird frame of mind, handed out the baggie of ashes to some of the followers, and they could grab a handful, throw it in their pocket. Some of these fools, get this, some of these fools took Charles Manson's ashes, took it to a tattoo parlor, mixed it with the ink, and had Helter Skelter tattooed on their body with Charles Manson's ashes. Now, how creepy
Here's the
that?
thing, man, dude. I don't think it's
Crazy.
creepy. Those guys are freaking idiots. And I don't know why you give them the light of day watching this stupid doc. They're idiots, man. They're literally jackasses. And you spend the time giving them your eyeballs for an hour on this dumb doc.
I'm fascinated, Jared. I am fascinated.
Just you describing how you found this doc. It's on Reels. It's like, what deep crevices of
No, I haven't
watching
watched
are
the
you
doc
finding?
yet. I watched the 15-minute interview with the grandson, but it did fascinate me to check out this doc if I can come across it.
It is. Yeah, you said it fascinates you. It's something. Okay, so it's not for everyone because clearly,
No.
anytime we bring these up, Jared is out.
He's out.
How many?
I'm with you because I don't know what it is. It's a fascination to be like how crazy some people are.
Yes.
Like, because I'm with you. It doesn't surprise me because I know Manson had some insane followers like that. But to think that you would, there's people whose minds are so twisted to take his ashes and have them tattooed into your body is just like
Unreal.
there are some crazy people out there, clearly. And
Yeah, I'm too harsh on it. I do think the Manson story is interesting, but this is like not even about him. This is about some. It's just taken. It's like now it's like we're 3 degrees separated from the Manson. Now we're just talking about his idiot followers who haven't done anything since he passed away or since he was killed or whatever. I don't even know what happened to him.
He just died in prison of cancer, I think.
Okay, so since he died, they've done nothing since then to kind of keep this whatever his cult was going. Except tattoo his ashes into their arms. It's just like we're shining light on just some complete idiots. And so it's just funny that you're sitting there watching this when these people don't know what's going on tomorrow. And it's like we're supposed to be creeped out by these guys. They're just dumb.
They are clearly dumb idiots. Every word you can describe. Satanic. It makes me think, there's the people who got the tribal tattoos or the tramp stamps that were popular back in the day, when you like grow up and not necessarily grow up, get older, whatever. And you look back at, some people got tattoos that they come to, they're like, not the best idea. Maybe they get it turned into something else or whatever. How would you describe that? Like, say some of these people come to the right frame of mind and then they got to look at their arm and they've got Helter Skelter tattoo.
Yeah.
Well, like, what would you do with that? You get it covered up or you get it removed? I don't know.
No, I think,
those are the type of people who probably they follow that their whole lives.
Yes, they're evil. There's just evil in this world, and there's evil people, and these people are evil. And I guess the fascination that I have is it's completely polar opposite to how we look at the world,
Right.
How does this happen? How do these people get sucked into it? We know about Manson's followers and how he kind of brainwashed them, and it was the whole hippie thing and all that. Okay, that's one thing. But there is just people out there that are completely, just evil. It's just like here in Shiawassee County, we had the whole cannibal Latunsky thing, know.
I mean, is it that? Yeah. I mean, you're obsessed with this story now for 40 years. Is it that hard to believe that in the real life, like when this actual story that you clearly are obsessed with for 40 years, is that hard to believe that a couple idiots wouldn't have jumped on his ship? I just don't find it. It is fascinating, but it's just people are dumb, and you give them something to believe in, they'll follow it, man. And you give them some drugs to help them believe in it, they'll do that too. Now,
the question I have then is, before we wrap this up, is: are you saying I'm dumb or these people are dumb?
I'm not. No, I know. No, I understand why you. I believe me. Of all the things you follow, at least this is like a famous, kind of not necessarily murder mystery, but at least this is a famous story that I will be honest. Whenever it does come up, I tune in a little bit. It's a wild period, and we just saw a famous movie come out about it. 3-4 years ago, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So
yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I knew I wasn't alone on that. So
Yep.
we'll leave it there. We'll call that a positive as we wrap this up. This has been the 3 Point Podcast presented by Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center. Make sure you sign up for a membership. I got to tell you guys, I kind of slacked a little bit this summer. Outdoor activities. I would do some exercise. I went to the Wellness Center yesterday. I'm back on my regimen. Started it yesterday. Weighed myself in. I was surprised that I didn't gain more weight. So I was pleased with the scale reading, and I'm back into it every day, 6 days a week anyway, and back to watching what I'm eating. So Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center, it's tremendous. Also want to thank our local partners, AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, our sponsor of the Prep Spotlight, Kori Shook and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Don't forget, coming up only less than 2 weeks away, the Castle Game of the Week, August 24th, Eaton Rapids at Owasso. We'll have more about that on our next podcast. The 6th annual, boys. It's amazing. Can't believe it. The prep pigskin preview. It's hard to say real fast, but it's going to be fun.
Not only it makes you think 6th annual of that show, but we've been just doing this podcast for that long. That's what it makes you think.
Man.
Yeah, no doubt. And I was doing a little research because Jared, your dad, hooked me into doing a little talk at the local Rotary on Thursday morning. Just to talk about the career a little bit and then promote 3 Point Podcast. But it's 2017 we started this little thing, and we're still doing it. It's amazing.
It's crazy. Yep.
All right, peace and love. Everybody be kind out there. Stay away from the Manson followers, and thanks for listening.